Hi guys, I welcome you all to the next lecture in our anthropology lecture series. Today we are going to start with culture personality school. Before this we have completed structuralism. As of now we were trying to we are trying to study about cultures and societies, how they have originated, right, what functions they serve, how they are structured. So in structuralism especially, we looked at the structural part of societies and cultures, right, how they are structured and how they are the products of mind. So basically a psychological aspect was added on, a new aspect to study the cultures and society was added to it, but then it didn't take it forward, it didn't take it to a, a lot in depth. But the culture personality school that we are starting now, it is going to uh, use this psychological aspect of how cultures and societies are products of mind, how they are, you know, the psychological aspect of man is used by the culture personality school. So one thing is this. So now one more interesting thing about this is in this school is that a lot of female anthropologists, who were the students of Franz Boas, like this is Ruth Benedict. She's Ruth Benedict. She's Margaret Mead. She's Cora Du Bois, right? So all of them, not all of them, but see, so many female anthropologists have entered, so they will bring a lot of new perspective, so-called feminist perspective to their studies, and that will make it a lot different than the rest. One thing is this. The second thing is they are going to take forward the psychological perspective, so it is going to make anthropology very holistic, because they will use psychological perspective, sociological perspective. So it is going to take them a lot, it is going to make their study a lot more different, right? So today we'll cover Ruth Benedict and her ideas. Tomorrow we'll do with Margaret Mead and all. So this is just a quote that I wanted to share with you. This is said by Ruth Benedict: the purpose of anthropology is to make the world safe for human differences. So this speaks volumes about her character, right? The kind of person that she was, and the role of anthropology in her life, and what she thought of anthropology as a subject. It was, to make it safe for human differences. So she was influenced a lot, and she was a student of Franz Boas, so she was a lot influenced by his ideas of cultural relativism and all. So that is why you can see this thought also has a background like that, right? So now let's get started with the introduction of culture personality school. This school as a whole emerged around World War I, particularly in USA in the 1930s, okay, because at that time there was, as the world was opening up a lot more, and there were people who were getting to, interact with each other from different corners of the world, and to know their practices and to win the world war, especially the Americans wanted to understand the Japanese and their characteristics as people, because they were very they were very shocked by the behavior of Japanese. So that is why, to understand different people, cultures, it was very important to win a war against them. So that was also a background for this culture personality school to grow and develop so fast, right? So this school combined the elements of psychology, sociology with anthropology. So in a way it made it a lot more holistic. The ideas, the cultures, the societies around the world were viewed from a new perspective now, right? So it wanted to see how the influence of socio-cultural aspects on individuals. So two things they were trying to see, I'll just tell you. They were trying to look at two very important things in this school: how the cultures, wait, yes, so how the cultures influence the personality, and how the personalities influence the culture. So there are two things: how culture is going to affect the personality of the individual, and how the personality of individuals are going to collectively influence the culture. So this was the whole idea behind the culture personality school, right? And then this school, the ideas, you can say it started in the works of Franz Boas, cultural relativism, and then Edward Sapir, we will study about him. And right, so it in a way started there. Then Claude Levi-Strauss also added the psychological perspective to it, and then further on it was taken on by Ruth Benedict, Margaret Mead, Ralph Linton. So all these are the part of this school. Today only Ruth Benedict we are going to study. So what is a personality? If I have to ask you, personality is a very you can say a very integrative whole. It is created of, if I say this is, wait guys, yes, if I say this is a personality of a person, right? This is the personality. It is made up of a lot of things. You can say morals, right? Or should I make it a little bigger? Values. ठीक है? It is made up of the attitude of the individual, right? Social norms, you can say, right? Then personal ethics हो सकते हैं, ethics, right? Then belief system हो सकता है, right? Then family values हो सकती है, and then there could be many other things. So basically, if we have to say ki what is personality, personality is a sum or the whole sum of all these attitudes, all these values, and then there are many others like the society, the culture, the religion, your family values, your individual traits, right? So personalities are unique in the sense that no two people can be similar. They can be similar, of course they can be similar, but no two people can be the same, right? So no two people's personalities can be same. So it is a sum whole of many things which make the people very unique, right? And a lot of, see, from these values only you can see a lot of them are acquired. That means a lot of part of our personality is what we acquire, we learn, right? We inculcate in ourselves. We acculturation happens, enculturation happens, learning happens, acquire करते हैं हम अपने personality को. So a lot of that is acquired. It is neither good or bad. You cannot say the personality of a person is good or bad, right? Even if we have to talk about Hitler, he had a lot of good qualities in him, right? So we cannot say as a whole कोई एक personality trait हो सकता है which can be good or bad, but the personality as such is not good or bad, right? So this is something about personality, because we need to understand what personalities are before we use it with the study in our culture personality school, right? So now let's look at what Ruth Benedict's contribution to the school were, right? So she was a student of Franz Boas and a true relativist. That means she always believed in the diversity. That means she never believed that there was any kind of a unity. She believed that every culture was different. They were created in their own unique settings, and in those own unique settings she added a very beautiful aspect of personalities, right? So that was the whole idea. She was not interested in generalizing the human societies, right? And in this book, this is a book by Ruth Benedict, Patterns of Culture, a lot of the ideology that she followed and the contribution to her culture personality school wheel is taken from this book, culture, the Patterns of Culture, right? So in this book she talked about culture pattern, though the term was given by Kroeber, but she explained the whole concept of culture pattern. So let me just try and make you understand. Okay, let's try and create a complex whole. Okay, so let's try to create a let's try and construct certain things. Okay, just wait guys. Yeah, okay. So if I have to look at this tiny dot that I've put, this is called the culture trait. Okay, this is called the culture trait. The blue thing you can call a culture complex. That means there are the basic unit would be a trait, and then a lot of traits will make a complex, and then a lot of complexes together will create a complex whole, complex culture whole, जिसको आप बोल सकते हैं culture whole बोलो या culture, you can say a configuration of culture. Now what is a configuration of culture? That means every culture is made up of very unique characteristics, and the basic characteristic would be a trait. ठीक है, and those unique traits will make culture complexes, and those unique culture complexes will then create a whole which is called the configuration of culture. ठीक है, so this idea was even considered by Kroeber, and then she in her book Patterns of Culture explained this whole thing. Now let us try and understand it in a lot of depth. Let's try and take a Hindu culture, right? ठीक है, so let us take let's try and look at the culture complex. So अगर एक culture complex हमको लेना हो religion, right? So हमारे religion में क्या traits होते हैं? Polytheism हो सकता है, right? Idolatry हो सकता है, we believe in idolatries, right? Then polytheism है, idolatry है, we then there are इंडिया के हिंदू कल्चर में देयर इज सेक्युलरिज्म ऑल्सो. दैट मीन्स कि हम दूसरे कल्चर्स को रिस्पेक्ट भी करते हैं, राइट? इसी तरह से अगर हमको एक फैमिली का कॉम्प्लेक्स देखना है तो उसमें क्या क्या हम देख सकते हैं? वी कैन लुक एट द जॉइंट फैमिली सिस्टम विच इज़ द नॉर्म इन इंडियन सोसाइटीज़, दैट वी हैव जॉइंट फैमिलीज. ठीक है, वी हैव अ पेट्रियार्कल फैमिली स्ट्रक्चर, राइट? पेट्रियार्की इज देयर. ठीक है, देन कॉमन किचन. ठीक है, रिस्पेक्ट फॉर एल्डर्स, right? Okay, let's take some other ideas. Now let's take the economy, right? So economy में we can say that we are predominantly agriculture based societies. ठीक है, then labor intensive है, right? Labor intensive is there. Similarly, if we take our political structure, so we'll say we mostly believe in democratic values. ठीक है, then there is fraternity, ideals of equality, right? This is what we possess. So if I have to look now, if I have to now tell you what would be a trait would be, for suppose joint family system, it is a very characteristic of Hindu culture or Hindu society, right? Hindu society you can say. That means even Indian society, let me just take this out because we are talking about Indian, so let's write Indian only here. Let me just write Indian because that word would be a lot appropriate than using Hindu, right? Yeah. So if we have to talk about it, तो हम क्या बोल सकते हैं that traits क्या हैं? Joint family system is a trait. ठीक है, then polytheism is a trait. Secularism can be one of the important traits of our Indian society or culture. Then democracy is a very important, agriculture is a very important trait. So all these things are making what? They are making complexes, very unique complexes, like how our religion is going to look like, how our family is going to look like, how our economy is going to look like, and these in turn are making the whole Indian culture, the configuration of culture. So this is how different cultures are patterned around different traits, and these traits would be different for all the cultures because they are created in different settings. That means Indian culture, American culture se different hai. American though a lot similar to the European culture, but then they have their own cultural setting, unse different hai. That is different from the tribal cultures. So then this is what she was talking about, the patterns of culture. I hope you have understood this, right? So when she studied this book, in this book patterns of culture, she basically tried to explain two cultures, two kind of traits. Okay, so she believes that culture patterns cause shared personality by all members of the culture. That is true. That means ye jo cultures, whatever little that we have written down, they are part of our shared personality. That means we all believe in democracy, we all believe in secularism, we all, though agar aaj today bhi nuclear families hain, but then also joint family structure is something that is not like very new to us. We have all lived, if not lived, but we know it, it is around us, right? So this is the shared personality that all Indians will have, and similarly so for other cultures, right? So the culture pattern causes a shared personality of people. And then in the book, okay, let me take another yeah, okay, let us try, let me just tell you what she was telling in the book. So basically she studied certain American cultures. Okay, she studied certain American tribes. Okay, and the tribes were Zunis, they were the foragers, that means the gatherers and hunters type. And then there is another tribe called Kwakiutl, they were the agriculturalists, right? So basically what she said, that there was two contrasting personalities in these two groups, and they were the Apollonian and Dionysian personalities. In the initial thing, she gave three personalities. One was Apollonian, second was Dionysian, and third was the paranoid personality. But then later on she combined Dionysian and paranoid personalities into one, and then she said that two personalities are there in societies around in the world. There are societies and there are two personalities that are there. One is Apollonian, one is Dionysian, and she gave certain characteristics. The names were taken from the Greek gods, like sun god Apollo, who is called the god of peace also. And then there is a Dionysia, he is the Greek god, and he signifies competition, a little too aggressive personality, who competes a lot, who has a somewhat a very aggressive character, right? Whereas Apollonians would be people who are very peaceful, who are very docile, who are very cooperative towards each other. So this is how she drew two different personalities, two contrasting personalities. And now how can you see these personalities? For example, foragers, we know thoda bahut abhi tak humne jo padha hai, we have understood that the hunters or gatherers, they needed to cooperate, because if they don't cooperate, theek hai, they cannot hunt big animals, they cannot live they could not survive with so many big animals, right? So for them, cooperation was a behavior that was much needed. So in that cooperative behavior, competitive spirits, you know, are avoided, right? Competition nahi chahiye. There is no leaders. You don't need leaders. You want egalitarian kind of a society, right? Egalitarianism is promoted. Whereas in agriculturalist, when there is less dependence on the other person, you have private property, then you have class societies, then less egalitarian and hierarchical structure. So competitiveness builds, right? There are leaders, people obviously want to be better than the others, so every time there's a race to be better, right? So this was the two contrasting personalities that she saw in the American cultures, right? American two tribes, Zunnis and Quakuthals. Let me change the color. Zunnis and Quakuthals. So she came up with these two contrasting personalities and said that this is how, this is how culture would affect individual personalities. Just because they were like agriculturalist and there was class hierarchies and there is not much egalitarianism, so people are a lot competitive, they are a lot ruthless towards each other, they are totally competing with each other. So this is how culture would play a role on the personality. And even in Indian scenario, you can say, of course, we all have a shared personality, shared Indian personality, right? We all have respect for our elders. We all believe that no matter what, we will not hurt our parents, right? So this is what our shared personality is. So this is what Ruth Benedict was talking about. And then she did one more. She wrote one more book. This was the time of the World War, and they really wanted to understand the Americans really wanted to understand the behavior and personality of Japanese, because these Japanese never became prisoners of war. They always preferred to kill themselves, but they never became prisoners of war. So to understand them, first hand information उनसे लेना मुश्किल था. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to study their personality. So this book, The Chrysanthemum and the Sword. Chrysanthemum, as you can see, this is the flower. This is a very delicate flower. So this is called the chrysanthemum, and the sword, you know what the sword is. So this title itself of this book showed the two contrasting personalities of Japanese. Okay? So what was the two contrasts basically in the childhood, when these Japanese early childhood, you can say, in the early childhood, the parents used to take care of their children like with in a very tender way, because they understood कि बच्चे कितने how delicate they are, they need love, they need care, affection, right? So parents took care of their children with love, care and affection. But when they got into the, you can say, the so-called adolescent age, right? And the adolescent age, the parents became very strict with their children, and then they never gave them any pocket money, so they had to work to pay their expenses of schools. And so that is how the hardships they see in their very adolescent age only. When they are growing up, their personalities are still building, they are becoming concrete individuals. So this is how two contrasts in the family dynamics only create their dual characters of being very polite, very sweet in their usual life, and becoming very aggressive in times of war. So this is how psychology, the personality, has a larger bearing on the society also. In the World War, why were they so aggressive, or why were the usual people who were so sweet, so nice, how did they become so aggressive? So she did a distant study. That means she didn't go there and study them, but from a distance, being in America itself, she studied their characters, and it led to national character studies. जैसे हम आज बोल सकते हैं ना, there is a national character of India. You can just believe, आप Indians सोचोगे and you will get certain stereotypes of what Indians look like or what Americans look like. So then these kind of studies also came in, and this book was patterns of Japanese culture. That means how they were, they had a dual personality, a very contrasting personality of being very lovable, affable people, and then being then switching on to becoming very aggressive people, right? So this was one book. One book was Pattern of Culture, जिसमें उन्होंने Apollonian and Dionysian cultures की बात की है. The other book was The Chrysanthemum and the Sword. You can just quote these books. This ये तो बस आपको मैंने understanding के लिए बताया था कि how the Japanese behave and all. You need not write this. This is just for your understanding, and you can quote it as an example. And then I've already told you about she combined the Bossian cultural relativism and psychological principles. So this actually added a new dimension. Okay, it made the school a lot more holistic, because social perspectives, psychological perspectives were added, and a lot of new feminist perspective was added. So it gave a new breadth to the subject. But then there was a criticism also. Today we are only doing the criticism to Ruth Benedict. The whole criticism we'll do once we are done with the whole all the scholars of this school, right? So she could not tell that why cultures exist or originated, right? So basically what we are studying, how societies and cultures came up, they evolved, how they were different from each other. Though she told that individual personalities affect cultures, right? But she could not tell ki how cultures existed, what is their reason of origin, why would they be transmitted, how are they going to transmit it, through socialization, through enculturation. She didn't talk about any of these things, right? No historical idea was taken in. So even though she added the psychological aspect, but then a lot of other aspects were not included in her studies. So this can be the criticism. I hope you guys liked the lecture. If you did, please guys like, share and subscribe. I'm putting a lot of effort for you guys. I also need certain motivation for myself, so please guys share it with others. I also want to be motivated, right? And any other suggestion, please post in the comment section below. I'll be happy to reply. Thank you.